broadcast of 2014. This is very exciting. We're talking about balance and writing life today and whether those two things actually can coexist in the world or whether it's a gigantic myth. So I'm going to introduce myself. First, I'm Julia Kelly. I write contemporary romance, and we'll go around the metaphoric room.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ann. I write contemporary romance. I have a book, The Storm Inside Out, right now, Reflective in the Rain, will be out soonish. And I know we're not doing drinks tonight, but tonight I am drinking whiskey because it's been one of those.
And I am Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction. The books I have out right now are Never Ending Beginnings and a novella, Delayed. And I'll introduce my drink as well because it's cute. I'm having the Lagunitas little something something. So hopefully we'll give you a little something good in our talk tonight about balance.
It seems like the perfect Julia for Renzo. I'm drinking a sidecar, which I actually spilled all over my desk before this started, so I have not drunk this whole thing. But it's been a very long, very, very cold day here in New York, which I know a lot of people are dealing with right now. So anything with brandy in it sounds like a good idea. So we're
going to share with you. I'm drinking the Templeton Rye, which is new to us. We just got introduced to it. It's really good if you like small batch rye whiskey.
To check it out. So we're going to open up today talking about, first of all, kind of balance and whether it's even possible when you're a writer. So if you want to start off, Alexis, and kind of kick off whether you think this does or does not even apply to writers in the writing life.
Balance is a myth, and if you believe you can have your life in balance, then you're never going to be happy. There's no way that I, as a writer, can keep my life perfectly in balance. Writing is an all-consuming thing. I think all writers feel that they kind of live the writing life. It's something that's always running in the back of your head. And so no matter what you're doing, whether it's laundry or dishes or chasing 2-year-olds or sitting at a desk and a computer all day, writing is going on in the back of your head and it's distracting. And the minute that you sit down to do something, it kind of takes over and you wish you were doing it all the time. And so even trying to attempt to keep everything in balance is never going to happen, and so don't try to do it because you're just going to be miserable.
What about you, Mary Chris?
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. I mean, I think it's tempting to try to schedule things out and balance and come up with equal time for everything, but it just, to me, that process is more stressful and just creates more stress. So I do think learning to sort of embrace the fact that it's never going to be balanced and that there's always, there will always be times that I'm focusing more on writing and times that I'm focusing more on other things in my life. That's just how it's going to be. It's not going to be in balance. And I think accepting that has been a big thing for me. But yeah, I agree there is no such thing as balance.
Yeah, I'm a pretty organized, type A, list-driven person. I am terrible at balancing my life when I'm writing. When I'm in the middle of a draft, it's all or nothing, and then when I take off a little bit of time to kind of sort my thoughts out, that's when kind of the rest of life comes in, and I get to rebalance a little bit. And I know this week in particular has been really interesting for that because we came off of a holiday and then immediately got slammed by a snowstorm here in New York. And because of my job, that's kind of when the high time for work is, and so writing had to get put aside, even though what I really wanted to do was work on edits, and I know I need to get them done, and it needs to happen, but unfortunately, writing isn't what pays the bills right now, so more often than not, I think writing ends up taking over, but it's never balanced, and I think that I maybe once or twice have felt like this was all, I was seeing everybody I needed to see, I was doing everything I needed to do, I was going to the gym, which I can tell you right now is the first thing that goes when I'm in full-on writing mode. So I think it's kind of a myth, and I think that it's kind of the cause of more stress than anything else for a lot of writers because you feel like you should be doing a better job at being balanced. So what do you guys say when people ask you, you know, I know I've run into it a lot where people will walk up and say, I just don't understand how you can write and do all these other things. What do you say when they kind of imply that you've got everything in check, and how do you make sure that your life is kind of hitting this nice plane where everything is working in all the different areas?
I think, I mean, I used to jokingly say I wrote my first novel when I was in graduate school, so I was working full time and in graduate school, and I wrote a novel. And people would always say, "How in the world did you do that? Like, how did you find the time to do that?" And I would always jokingly say that I don't watch TV, which is mostly true. I don't watch TV very much, but that was kind of a flip, joking way to answer the question, which I guess really was my way of answering that question by saying I don't have everything together. Like, I go to many, many, many a happy hour and cocktail party and just smile and nod when people talk about whatever they're watching on TV. And I pick up things that way, but I do a lot of, wow, I've heard really great things about that. Like, what do you think about it? Because I don't know anything about it. So that used to always be my flip answer to that question of how do you get everything done. But I think, underneath that answer really is I don't have time to do everything, so something has to go. And sometimes those choices are harder than others about what has to go. But it's a deep conversation, and it's hard when you're just asked, like, how do you do it all? And there's not a quick, easy answer to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I try. There's always something in the back of my head saying, do not laugh hysterically. Just don't do it. You can't laugh in their face when they ask you the question.
Yeah.
Because it sounds crazy, especially when you're super busy and you're doing 12 different things and you don't sleep and you give up TV and everything, and then they say, how do you do it all? And you're like, you're funny. I don't do it all. Crazy person. But like you said, you pick and choose what's important to you, and for us, writing is what's important. So I don't watch. When I was younger, I watched a lot of TV. I enjoyed it. I watched a lot of old movies on the weekends and stuff like that. I don't do that right now because I'm reading and writing, and that's what's super enjoyable to me. And so when I can have the opportunity to have a deeper conversation with one of these people, and it's not a real quick, no, I don't have it all. I'm crazy. Trust me. I do sit down and I tell them, look, I've given up a lot of things, and I just focus on what's important to me.
Yeah, I think that I've always been a strong believer that you'll make time for what you really care about. And at this point in my life, I'm single and I don't have kids, so I don't have that consideration. But I can choose to cut out other things in my life in a very busy life. And one of those things that I tell people, I remember when I was really deciding to crack down and just finish the first book that I was going to send out for agents, I didn't go out for a summer. And summer's a big time here in New York, and I have a lot of wonderful friends, and they were great and very understanding in a way, to a point of, this is something that was important to me, so I was going to have to say no to a lot of things, a lot of social things, a lot of happy hours and things like that. But on some level, unless you're the person actually making that decision, I think it's hard almost to explain, well, these are the things I did before, and these are the things I don't do now. And for me, television was a really, really big point. I watch a lot of sports, and I found that I can watch sports and I can enter handwritten edits at the same time, so I kind of cheat that. But in terms of, watching just shows and marathons of things and binge watching, I don't do that anymore. I save it for those periods of time when I need to let a manuscript rest, so I can do some edits, or I can take a look at it and step back a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely doable, and I find that it's almost in a weird sort of way easier for me to fit writing into my day when the day is really crazy and I know I have to carve out a certain amount of time, but at the same time that means that something else is not happening. So tonight I'm not going to the gym. I haven't been going to the gym since I've kind of been in the middle of this big round of edits, and that's just going to be the way it is, and I'm okay with that. And I kind of came to terms with the fact that New Year's resolution from last year was not going to end up happening. So it's almost strange, because you want to map your life out for people and be like, well, these are the things that are important to me, and I don't really know how to tell you this, but it's just, endless episodes of Breaking Bad. It's just not high on my priority list right now. So.
Yeah, it was interesting that you brought up, the idea just popped out of my head. Oh, letting a manuscript rest. And so when we're talking about writers balancing their lives in particular, that that's something that I always try to keep in mind, is that there's times for blotting out everything because I'm writing on a first draft and the ideas are flowing hard and fast. And then there's a time for stepping back and reading a lot of books and watching a lot of TV shows and letting manuscripts rest and ideas congeal in your head. And so that's, yeah, sometimes you let things go, but you can catch up at other times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes writing isn't the number one priority during those rest moments, or if something happens family-wise, or everything. There's push and shove with everything, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that's something I know I struggled with recently over the holidays, was just allowing myself to take a vacation, because I do work full time, as well as juggling that with writing, and I work in higher education, so I had a couple weeks off, and every year when I have those couple weeks off, I think, wow, I'm gonna I'm gonna write every blog for 6 months, and I'm going to finish an entire novel, and all these. I mean, I really think that in my head, because I think I'm gonna have like these 8 hours a day, and it's not that. I mean, it's 8 hours a day during a really busy time of the year, and I don't really carve out all that time. And so I get to the end of those 2 weeks, and I have this tendency to beat myself up about, oh, I didn't get this done, or I didn't get that done. And so I think a piece of that balance is allowing yourself to take those breaks and to take that time where you step back and say, it's important to be with my family. It's important, to do these other things too. So I think that's a piece of, the fact that there is no balance, this kind of pressure that I put on time off to get things done, and being a little bit easier on myself with that.
Yeah, I think those moments off are some of the most important moments. I had a novel idea while I was out in the middle of the mountains in Santa Monica shooting photographs with my dad, and suddenly I had this moment of, oh, here's this character I'd really like to write about, and what if, and your mind starts going, and by the end of that session shooting photos, I didn't have very many good photos, but I had a pretty solid idea of what I wanted to write about next. So I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
Your nano book that I get to read soon, hopefully, please.
It's a book that's in not so great shape because it was a NaNoWriMo book, so it's pretty messy, but one day. I've got a fantastic hero. He's super grouchy. It's great. I love him.
So excited!
Yes.
One day. So there's a question I'm really curious to know your perspective on, and maybe Mary Chris, you can start with this one. Do you think that male authors or men in general get asked this balance question? How do you do it all? Do you think there's the same expectation?
I mean, I have no actual evidence of whether that happens more or not, but my feeling and my gut reaction to that is that there's a lot of pressure on women to sort of be the superwoman, the career woman, the family, caring for their family, having a busy social life. I feel like there's a lot of that, and I know that from being a woman, that there's a lot of emphasis in, women articles in women's magazines and things like that about being superwoman and getting it all done and being organized. I don't have that perspective for men, so I don't know. But yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot of pressure on women and a lot of emphasis on balance and, carving out time for yourself and your spouse and your family and your job and planning for your future and, all these different things. I feel like it's probably more on women, just kind of as a gut feeling that maybe men aren't being asked that question as much.
Alexis, have you run into that situation?
I'm going to come at it from two sides here. But in general, I think, of course, this is a women's issue. It's not a men's issue because women are expected to be in balance all the time. When a man is driven and focused on a goal or a career, he's driven and focused. When a woman is focused on chasing a dream or is really focused on a career, we hear, how do you keep it in balance? If she's over-ambitious, then she's overly ambitious. And if you're letting things go, like getting the laundry done or other domestic tasks, which of course always wind up in women's laps, then you're letting things go and you're overwhelmed and you should really dial back until you can catch up with things. You don't say things like that to a man. You just don't. So it's in our vocabulary, it's in our dialogue. Yes, of course, it's the woman's issue and not just the men's issue. But when you follow all these different authors on Facebook and Twitter and their blogs, men don't talk about these things either. They just talk about their next book, what's coming up next, what their plan is for the year, what the business plan is. And yes, women talk about that too. But they also talk about, well, my husband works, I write from home, and I take care of the kids, and I do this and that. So it's expected of women to balance much more than it is with men. So it becomes a woman's issue.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I do think that there's a big there's a big gender role thing that plays into that, and that the woman is kind of has some expected things, and I think, Alexis, it's good for you to answer this question as a mother, but there's the expectation that you're caring for the house and the children, and like that's kind of your domain, and so the idea that things would get behind in that area, as far as laundry or dishes, you're right, there is that gender role with the idea of balance too, I think, which I would say the other thing, when people used to say to me, how do you do grad school and work and write, I would say, well, my husband does laundry and the dishes, and that seems sometimes to be a little bit of a foreign concept to people, that like I was in a partnership where if I left the dishes sitting on the counter for a long enough time, he would just do them, and conversely, if he left them for a long enough time, I would do them. It's just like one of us is going to get annoyed and do them, and we don't spend a lot of time thinking about like which one of us that is. But you're right, I think there's a lot of gender role tied up in that balance question as well. All right, back to you. Sorry, I cut you off earlier.
No, not at all. I just remember the most stark kind of the clearest moment of there being the gender roles question was being out when I was dating a gentleman who shall not be named for his own sake. I was dating him, and he was an architect, and he worked a lot of hours, and we were making it work, seeing each other with me in a very demanding job and a very demanding time in my job, while also writing and also getting ready for RWA and getting ready to write a new book and all these things coming on. And we were still managing to see each other and make it happen, and the expectation was always that I was the one who was making it happen, and which did him a disservice, because he certainly was, pulling his weight in the relationship as well, and trying to make sure that we saw each other, and all these things were going on. But the expectation was always that I was the one making the sacrifice, and that somehow I was the one who needed to hold it all together. So if things fell through, the implication was kind of it was my fault, but he wasn't the one that was as engaged in a way, which I thought was unfair on both of our parts, because really, no, we weren't at a point where we were, figuring out who was doing the laundry or buying groceries or cooking dinner together, because we weren't living together. But at the same time, relationships still happen, and people are still clothed. Children don't, run around and never get to school, even just because one person's a writer and one person happens to be a woman. So I think that it's a little frustrating when you get those questions and you realize that those questions are kind of pointed specifically because you are female.
Yep.
So on a more fun note, I know we've already talked a little bit about kind of what gives when you're in the middle of writing, but what are the big things that you sacrifice or you give up, maybe willingly sometimes, when you're in the midst of a draft? And when does it happen? Is it a first draft situation? Is it a little later in the game?
For me, it's definitely a first draft situation, because I write intense first drafts. I usually try to get them all out in 3 weeks while my brain is running. So those 3 weeks are not pleasant for anyone around me, because I don't show up, I don't do anything else. All I do is sit at my computer and write 8,000 words a day or more if I can, and less on other days. But you get the idea. I write a lot of words all day, every day, until I get the first draft out. I don't fade. I don't cook.
I remember that.
Oh, we eat so much takeout when I'm writing a first draft. Because the kids like to eat earlier in the day, and so I'm the one home. I cook, and I like to cook. But yeah, it gets ugly during the first draft, and then again, I'm like right now I'm in the middle of final edits, and it's almost the same kind of situation. Like everything has to stop until I get this done. Okay. We'll catch up on laundry. We'll catch up on seeing each other. Who are you, strange people in my house? When did you get here? You got the characters from my book. Stuff like that.
How about you, Mary Chris? I know TV you mentioned, but
well, yeah, TV, which honestly probably I gave up in a combination with being in graduate school and writing, and so that was kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, I would say it's probably more of a first draft thing and a final edit. I would agree with that. I think those are kind of the two times that are most intense. And first drafts for me often come in spurts, like when I'm on a roll, I don't want to stop, and then sometimes I need to stop and take that time away. I always say I get my best ideas when I set something down and go wash the dishes that have piled up on my counter, which is actually what always gives for me. Always, always, always. I'd like to eat at home. That gives a little bit. I definitely go out a little bit more, but I tend to make really quick, easy things when I'm in the middle of a final draft. Lots of like pizza crust that you just smother with cheese and stick in the oven. And yeah, and I'll do that and not do the dishes from that for days and days and days. And they sit there until either
I'm not alone.
Yeah, no. Alexis had you had a post up when you had a picture of your kitchen with all the pizza, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like someone understands me. I will actually sometimes like have to rearrange the dirty dishes to find counter space to cook. And I'll do that.
Yes.
I do that, and we'll make my little quick dinner. And then, in fact, I did that tonight. Actually, I made a little
virtual
space.
High five.
So yes, so until either myself or my spouse are really annoyed by that, the dishes sit there.
Yeah, cooking is one of the things that goes for me. If I can throw it in a slow cooker, this was like the revelation for me during the last book. I realized at some point that I just needed to buy a slow cooker because my sister had bought one and she said it was so amazing. And then I found out that every writer I know uses one. And so I ended up buying it. It's actually sitting up on top of my cabinets right now, away, which is good. When it sits on the counter and people come over, they should know this is the situation in this household. So that's the big thing that goes, because I really do enjoy cooking at home, and I get a lot of pleasure out of kind of stress cooking and things like that. The other thing for me, besides the gym and television, if I walk around and there are just things discarded all over the place in my apartment. I live in a studio, so I have to be very neat, very meticulous because it's not that big a space. But if there's a pile of sweaters, that's a pretty good sign that something's up. So those are the things that the general kind of tidying and cleaning and laundry and very typical are the things that go for me first. Mm-hmm. I haven't descended into a total deadline craze yet because I have never been on deadline. Except when I was in graduate school. So I've been very lucky in that regard. I really, really hope that somebody just comes over and feeds me. Maybe I'll have kind friends who will just decide to do shifts and make sure that I'm at least fed something hot every once in a while. So do you guys... Writers. I'm sorry?
The care of writers.
Yeah, we should create a not-for-profit organization and get people signed up in shifts.
Yes.
We have branches all across the country. So I thought we'd take a couple moments if there's anything you guys want to promo, anything that you want to talk about. I know the thing that I'd like to pitch right now, since I don't have any work out myself, is there's a very cool website that Alexis and I and another wonderful author, Audra North, have started working on, called Rock On, rawwwcon.com. I am terrible about spelling out loud. I'm not a great speller in general. But it's all about women writing romance and with a heavy dose of feminism in it too. So some of this chat probably applies very nicely to that website. So check it out. It's an aggregation site. We're still in the beginning stages of working on it, but we're kind of compiling content and getting ideas for how we want to expand a little bit more. And we'd like it to be very interactive. So not only comments, but viewer submitted articles and video posts like this and things like that. So hopefully we have grand plans to eventually grow this into something really great and kind of bring all these women, these wonderful women who write together and kind of create a dialogue. So that's my pitch for this time around.
Yes, absolutely. If you have any information for us, any articles, anything for writing and romance and women's issues and feminism, please please, and we'll put the link in the description of this.
Definitely.
Yes.
So
for me, I have. Sorry.
Go for it. No, I was just going to say you should go and promo. Keep going.
I still have my first novel, The Storm Inside, by Alexis Ann, out right now, and the sequel to Reflected in the Rain is in the final stages of editing and should be out in the next couple of weeks. So if you like your romances hot and spicy, please check out my website. Thank you.
It's really good, guys. I got a sneak peek of it. It's very, very exciting to see that romance continue.
Excellent. Well, in addition to your amazing website that you guys have created that I took a look at today, so I'm excited to spend some more time there. Yeah. So definitely put the link underneath this for people so they can check that out. But I have 2 books out. One is a novel, Never Ending Beginnings, and then I have a novella called Delayed. And I write women's fiction, so they're first-person, female narrated. If you would like to get in touch with me, I don't have the cool little bar at the bottom because I need a little technology upgrade in my life. So I am at marychrisescobar.com and on Twitter at marychris. That's Mary, CHRIS _E. So I would love to hear from anybody. And yeah, that's it. That's what I've got. I'll hopefully have a new novel sometime in the first quarter, a new novel that I did not work on very much over my winter break. Did not work on very much over my winter break, before you get excited. But hopefully I am giving myself a hard deadline, but I'm really, really bad at meeting my own hard deadlines. So I will tell Alexis and Julia when we get off the call, but I'm not going to put it out there.
We'll friendly bully you into hitting that deadline.
First quarter of the year, I hope to have that out, is what I will say publicly to everyone.
Well, that is very exciting. And I think if everybody is good to go, I think we're going to say goodnight. And Happy New Year's, and hopefully we will be back talking about some other aspect of writing and romance and drinking together at some point in the near future. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.